G'day, my name's Fred White. I'm with the Base Borden, volunteer with the Base Borden Museum in Borden, Ontario. Right now we're standing in front of an armored vehicle general purpose AVGP Husky. It's the maintenance variant of the AVGP. It was brought into service late 70s and carried through until late into the 90s before it was taken out of service. It's primarily used to support the fleet of AVGPs, including the Cougar and the Grizzly, which are the armored core and the infantry variants, and we'll do all support for them as they're training and doing exercises or on operations. These vehicles will be behind to do the maintenance support to them as it was required. This one here was at the REME school in Borden initially, and then about 10 years ago it was removed from service and actually was put onto a pad as a monument. We brought it in last fall. We managed to tow it off the pad, brought it into our shop, and been working on it over the winter, and now we have it where it's actually fully operational except for the crane right now. That's a later project we need into, but right now it does run fully, and all the components and parts of it are all working properly. Okay, so again, this is the vehicle itself, armored vehicle. The front hatch here, inside here is where we would hold onto the sheaves required for doing recovery operations. Farther inside is where the driver's seat is. That's where the driver sits. On top you'll see the 3 periscopes. That's what the driver uses to view as he's driving. If the hatch is closed in an event where they would be under fire. If not, the seat raises and he's able to have his head up above the hatch and be able to drive that way when he's driving. He's not aware of this is a wire cutter. Essentially, if there are wires across roads or trails, that would then cut the wire so it doesn't injure the driver or the crew commander. The engine in this vehicle, I'm gonna walk this way. The engine in this one is a 6V53T Jimmy Diesel, essentially 300 and odd horsepower. I'm not exactly sure exactly what it is, with an Allison automatic transmission that powers this unit. 6-wheel drive when it's operational. Front wheels are turned on or off, has to be driving. Front wheel steering, full independent suspension. Torsion bar suspension on it. The exhaust, as we can see on top, underneath the cam net up top is the crane that it uses. It's a high-ab crane, hydraulically operated. It can be operated from inside the vehicle or with a remote unit outside of the vehicle. On the side we have the stabilizers, which pull in, pull out. They're pinned in place, but they're used to isolate out the suspension when using the crane to do heavy lifts, so the vehicle doesn't sag, causing a problem when you're trying to do your lift and safety. Moving farther back along, carries A-frames for towing other vehicles, our various water cans, naphtha cans, spare tires up in the mount on the top. There's a winch system that's used to get them up and down because they are very heavy. These boxes here are now just cargo boxes. When these vehicles first came into service, there was actually a propeller here, and these vehicles were fully amphibious and able to swim. Those have been removed since then, as we no longer use them to swim. Moving around to the back, again the hook for the crane, the high-ab, secures here when it's in travel mode. When it's being used, that pin would be removed and then the crane would be able to function as a normal crane. In the back, a couple different things, workbench on the right. This would be your extra crew if there was an extra. Normally there's 2 people in it when it's operating, but it has the capacity to carry 2 extra technicians in the back. They see our parts, the controls for the high-ab are up the front. Toolbox on a rack that will pull out if need be. Inside here is normally where the winch would be. In this case, the winches have been reallocated when the vehicles were taken into service, so we no longer have the winch. These vehicles use a capstan style winch, which is similar to what's used on ships and boats. It does not have the cable attached right to the drum of the winch. The cable just wraps around the capstan itself, and then the tension on that is what holds it in place. This section here would be for oxygen acetylene bottles and their hoses, if that was needed. Again, there's bulletproof glass and on each of the doors for access. And combat locks are your basic tools up top for if trees are in the way or doing heavy work. Move around this side. Again, once again, these bins have been in to replace where the propellers used to be. There was one on either side. Radio antenna for communications. Fuel is through the cap here. Spare fuel cans on the side. These are supports that are used if you're doing a very heavy lift. They would go underneath the crane to support the crane a little farther out to enable you to lift a little heavier pieces. Again, another stabilizer on this side that would be used for that. And then in the center, hatch for the driver's compartment. And this is the crew commander's hatch. This one does rotate, where the crew commander, using just the one periscope, can see at 360 degrees. So here we have the engine bay with the engine I'm standing on. 6V53T, Jimmy. Right behind it on the back of it then is the transmission. The big green barrel here is the air cleaner system on it. And in behind is, farther back, is the transfer case, which actually transfers the power. Again, turbocharged. Heavy grills, per usual. And then top, again, where the fill up the coolant, the radiators on the back, running there. Okay, we're now sitting inside the driver's hatch on the AVGP. Currently, of course, it's the steering wheel here. It runs there. Beside that is the turn signals, the warning light, and the park brake release mechanism. Standard brakes and pedal, because it's an automatic vehicle. On the left-hand side, as we move to the left, is the shifter. So basically, first, second, 2 to 4, 2 to 5, it's an automatic transmission with neutral and then reverse. On this one here, there is a lockout mechanism to get up into reverse. Oh, hat. There we go. And then again, swinging back around farther to the left, up here we have the periscopes. When the driver is down in this position, he can put his forehead here, look through the periscopes, and it comes out on these periscopes up top here, and he can see where he's going. These are the 3 that he has to use when he's driving. Further to the left, come around to the dash, main light switch for all the different lights, whether it be service drive, which is normal white lights like any car, or we also have the black outside, which is then for nighttime operations when full white lights are not used. Essentially, ignition switch, the starter button, and then the same gauges you're going to have pretty much in any other vehicle that is out there. And the air pressure. Down to the bottom here, we have the master switch, which turns the main power on from the batteries when required, and then the heater control in the back. In behind me is where the crew commander would sit, and he has his own controls with the radio and a few other items back there, and basically he's my second set of eyes when I'm driving down the road, deciding where to go and using the communication system. Okay, so we're now in the back of the Husky. Right now this is the main work area that the crew would live in or work in. On the, of course, simple, basic workbench on the right-hand side, solid wood for working on smaller components and that while you're working. Toolbox on the left, again, it slides out on a rack. Lots of bins and racks and everything else to hold parts and tools in. Boiling vessel, very important for cooking your meals. Basically, put the meal inside, put some water in there, you turn it on, and it stays hot. These, again, are the controls for the high ab on top. There is a remote control in one of these bins that will plug into it. Then you can actually be outside working, because it's a cable type remote control that operates this when it's functioning. Control the engine speed up here, because when you're using the crane you need to increase the engine speed, so that gives you a smoother operation of your crane and more power available to it, because it's a hydraulically run system off the engine. Again, these are just the tubes that the stabilizers are right in. They don't do anything other than just hold stabilizers in place. Again, more racking. This is our communication system, which is where the headsets would hook into, so that you can be in communication with the driver or monitor the radio frequencies that are going on at the time. The racks, again, lots of storage just under the benches, storage under the floor, storage for the tooling and special equipment that we may need when we're doing our jobs. When we're out, we actually have 3 doors on the roof of this vehicle. There's a small one here, which is just normal operations. You would be able to stand up in here and operate the high ab through and be able to see what you're doing. But if need be, you can also open both these big doors will open up. Can't do it right now because the crane is in the stowed position. The crane has to be up and turned around in order to be able to open up, but it will open up the entire top of the vehicle for full access to everything that's going on outside. When we're using this vehicle, the capstan winch is down in behind this bench. For winching recovery operations, when out on recovery operations, there is, when the winch was in there, the cable is not attached to the drum. And on the cable at the very end of it, there were two marks. One was yellow, one was red. When the yellow mark came out, that was an indicator you're getting close to the end of your cable. When the red mark comes out, it means you're at the end of your cable and you've gone too far. Something like the oil light on your engine. When you do that, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You don't let the guy know operating the winch that the red mark is there. The red mark comes out. Next thing you know, you're hand bombing 100 feet of cable into the back of the vehicle to take it back to the shop to have it try and get it rewound again, which is not fun, especially for the guy that I woke up 3 o'clock in the morning and asked him to do it when I went back to bed because I was tired.
What would you say would be like the craziest recovery story that you've had?
Craziest recovery story would be we're out in Alberta, in Suffield. We were out supporting the Grizzlies that were out doing a training exercise. It was at night, in the evening, late in the evening. Very difficult to tell. Very flat ground, but there are wet spots out there. And 3 Grizzlies were following nose to tail out. And the first one got into a bit of a swamp, started slowing down. The one behind him kept his spacing, slowing down, and same with the third one. When the first one finally got to the point where he was buried up to his hull and stopped, the second one stopped, and the third one stopped, and the next thing you know, all 3 of them now buried up to their hull in this little bit of swamp grass and were unable to move. So that's when we had to go out and recover them. So in order to get them out, we had to go to the first vehicle, use it as an anchor, out to the second vehicle with a snatch block, and do a 2-to-1 pull of the second vehicle back to the first vehicle, then go out 2-to-1 from the first vehicle out of the swamp, and then we straight out with all of the cable to reach the last vehicle and using its wheels. However, that was done the next day because that's when we found out that the red mark was very important when paying out the winch cable.
What happened then?
Well, then we went back to where we were living, and there was another crew that was there that hadn't worked out with us at the crew at that time, and one of them had been involved when we were on our course learning how to actually rewind the winch cable. So I went in, woke him up, and told him I was having a small problem with my winch, and asked him if he could go fix it. So he got up and went outside, and I went to bed. So he came back in to wake me up later, let me know he was not happy, but he did fix the winch. The greatest challenge from this would have been his ability to work cross country. Just because the suspension, its design, it wasn't really specifically designed for cross-country operations the way that we used it and we're using it.
Were there any situations where you had to use 2 to get the job done?
Not that I was involved in, but there were other situations where you're doing pulls from different directions, so then you would need a second vehicle out there to do that. If it came to the point where we would need 2 of these vehicles, we would normally just call for a larger vehicle to come out and do the pull instead.
What would have been the larger vehicle that would have been the backup?
The Leopard. Leopard R would usually be the bigger one, or the 5-ton wreckers themselves would come out as well.
Did you ever get to train on or do anything with those?
Not with the Leopard, but I worked with the M109, the 578. I did the training on that one and the M109s, training on this vehicle and all of the wreckers, 5-ton wreckers at the time.
Which one was your favorite?
The old gas 5-ton wrecker, which are a really old beast, terrible to drive, but it was still fun to drive.
I understand that these have changed since you served with them. If there was one thing you could have changed about it to make your job easier, what do you think it would have been?
Probably put a winch onto the actual high-ab, because right now the high-ab is a fixed hook on the end, where when you're trying to do straight up pull, it's a little more challenging on the controls because you're working with straight arms. Whereas having a winch capability on that to do straight lifts, when you hook up, then you pull it, and then you're pulling straight up, that's definitely been a major improvement in my mind.
Gotcha.
I feel very fortunate that I'm back volunteering at the museum. I've been out of the military now for a number of years after serving 38, and being back to the museum, being able to actually work on this equipment again that I worked on before because I'm familiar with it, and the challenge is still there as far as working on them. And just the group of guys who are working with the volunteers at the museum in Borden are just great, and we have a lot of fun working on the equipment, but we're also very serious when we are working on it about how it's going to look and what it's going to look like in the end, and that it is done properly and safely.
Thank you guys so much for watching. This was a treat.
Thank you.
And I'm very, very thankful for your time and for your knowledge. Come on out and support Base Borden. So this group has a lot of volunteers with a lot of experience, but they could use a little bit of your help, and you can follow along as they restore this vehicle and a ton of others. They have a lot of rare stuff in your collection that I know you guys would like. I put the links for the descriptions to their social media and their website, as well as their Patreon down below. So go ahead and check out their Patreon, support them there, and you can keep up with the volunteers and staff at Base Borden and their awesome museum, and be able to see some of their stuff out here at Aquino Tank Weekend at Ontario Regiment Museum next year. If you missed out this year, you'll be able to see them next time, and some more of their awesome restoration projects, as the Flak Panzer restoration project on the hat kind of hints at. They have some really cool stuff going on. So check out the links in the description. Go check out their Patreon. Like and subscribe this video if you dug it and you hadn't already, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.
See ya.